I'm Bobby Pompey, Independent Living Skills Specialist here at the Lighthouse for the Blind, and today we're going to be doing a video talking about setting up a workflow in the kitchen and do some basic knife skills. So I want to start with how you set up, ideas for setting up a workflow. And I use the word flow because you want it to be something naturally that you move through as you're working. And this can be set up for whichever way you decide, but I'll show you what I've done today. So to my left, with the right on the angle of the camera, are all of the vegetables that I'll be cutting in this video and subsequent ones. They're set up on my left, so this is where I start and grab my ingredients to continue to the workflow. Next to that is an empty bowl. It's empty right now, and this will be where all the compost items go. So this way I'm not having to travel back and forth to the trash can as I'm working. I can just dump all my compost. If you're cooking something that maybe has trash or recycling items, you can designate another bowl for that. But having a place so you can stay where you are and don't have to work as hard and move back and forth. Next is my knife block. So this is where I would get my knife. For this particular example, I already have one out. But then lastly, behind the knife block is another empty bowl where all my finished vegetables will go. And then right front and center, right in front of me is my work area with the cutting board. So again, the workflow from left to right, I grab my vegetable or whatever I'm working on. I have a bowl for compost. I have my working area right in front of me, my knives, and then a bowl for the finished product. So we're gonna do today a basic knife skills with cutting a banana. So this is a great way to start for people that are children or people that are newer to cutting non-visually, using non-visual techniques and maybe a little nervous. Because I'm using a banana, I'm also using a plastic butter knife. Not as sharp, not as potentially dangerous, a great place to start. So when exploring a knife, the first thing you want to do is identify where the blade is and what side is the cutting side, and is your knife serrated or smooth. So a safe way to do that is take the pad of your finger, it doesn't really matter which one, and lightly tap along the surface of the blade. And you want to avoid a running motion where you're constantly applying pressure to the blade, because that, if you do that right on the blade, slices right down your finger. But if you do that tapping motion, now I'm moving to the edge of the blade, the cutting edge of the knife, and that's using that same tapping motion, I'm able to determine that this is a serrated butter knife. Quick note about things that are serrated. Serrated items are usually good for things that are soft because you can do a sawing motion. So I think of it as SSS, all goes together. And soft, a serrated knife for things that are soft with a sawing motion. So I'm gonna start by peeling my banana. Before I start, I want to make a quick note about having a place for your knife as a part of your workflow. So that could be, I always put my knife on the left. It could be that I always put it on the right, I always put it in the front of the board, wherever, but knowing where you're gonna put it, so that way whenever that knife is not moving, not in use, you have a destination for it. So for me personally, I like to put mine at the top of the cutting board. Usually the knife blade is facing away from me. Sometimes it faces towards me, but the point is I put it at the top and I know that the handle is on the right side because I'm right-handed. So working with the banana, an important thing to note is which end you open the banana from. You usually want to identify the end with the longer stem and then break it open. And I usually just get a good grip around the tip of the banana, hold on to the stem, and just pull it backwards. And as I unpeel this banana, I'm going to drop my peels right into the compost. Another good thing to note and to teach, especially for kids, is to kind of feel around the banana so you get all of these fibrous strings off of the banana that sometimes are not as tasty. And I'm gonna take those off, put those in the compost also. So you may also notice that I'm working on a cutting board that is black. So this cutting board is black. It actually has two sides. I will show the white side as a traditional white side, but I'm going to be working on this side, which is the black side, and this is to add contrast. So because the flesh of this banana is a kind of pale yellow color, working on this black side adds visual contrast and could make it easier to spot it out if you're using those visual clues. So the first technique that I want to show you is called the claw method. And what you do is you hold your hand that will not be cutting. So for me, that's my left hand. I start by having people hold it up like a fist. And it doesn't really matter how your fist is positioned, but the point is I want people to get the idea of this fist kind of knuckles curled up hand motion. And then I imagine that fist is going to fall over the banana and collapse into place. So it becomes that fist is the basis of your grip. So as my fingers have fallen across the banana, I've widened up the space between my knuckles, and all those kind of things to accommodate the size of it. So you don't want a balled up fist just sitting on top of it. You want to let your fingers collapse across, but keeping the knuckles curled as you do it. Something important to note is the placement of the thumb. It doesn't matter if the thumb is inside the fist or outside of the fist. That's a personal preference. But the important part is that it is away from the direction that the knife is coming from. So you wouldn't want it to point like this. So right now I have my thumb pointed completely to the right of my cutting board, like I'm doing a thumbs up motion, and if my knife is coming from that direction, it would find my fingertip first. So you want to make sure that the finger is tucked. So now I have my thumb that is pointing directly away from me. It could also be tucked inside my fist and pointing to the left. It could be on the side of the banana and pointing to the left. But as long as it's not pointing in the direction that the knife is coming from, you're good. So I'm gonna pick up my knife, identify my cutting edge by doing that tapping motion, adjust my grip around the banana, so finding where it's starting. What I do is when I'm holding the knife, I like to work it so that my index finger is running straight down the back of the blade. But what that does is as I'm coming in, it allows me to then use my middle fingers and other fingers to reach in and determine the size of the slice or cut that I'm making. So because this is a serrated knife, I'm going to use a sawing motion to saw through this nice soft banana. Remember, serrated, soft, and sawing. And first, I'm just going to saw off this tip and put that in the compost. Some people keep it, some don't. To make this banana a little easier to work with because it is long and it is rounded, I'm going to just cut it in half. So I'm going to find each end with my fingertips, work them in until I find roughly the middle. It doesn't have to be an exact thing. Get my hand in the claw position and saw through. And I'm going to move that piece that I have not dealt with to the left of my board, because if you recall the workflow, things start on the left, end up on the right. So I know that I haven't fully dealt with this banana because it's on the left side of my cutting board. So now I'm going to get the banana back into position so that it's running from left to right across my body. Get my hands back in the claw technique, make sure I'm using the right side of my blade, reach in with my middle finger on my right hand to identify how thick I want my slices. I think I'll do these in pretty big chunks and start sawing through. And then I'm going to use my knife to push that piece over, not letting the blade scrape on my cutting board, which is less important here, more important, sorry about that, which is less important with the butter knife, much more important when you have a sharp blade that is could potentially scrape up your cutting board. So I'm going to reach back in and just continue cutting this using those same techniques. because the banana is curved, I'm gonna slightly be rotating it so that my pieces match the curve of the banana. Just one last piece. Put my knife back into its resting place and move my bananas into my finished bowl. And you'd use the same techniques for the other half of the banana.